The next speaker that I would like to invite is Mukundan, MD and CEO of Tata Chemicals, to share his experiences from the manufacturing perspective and the people challenges and how they have taken this on to the new normal. Over to you, Mukundan.
Firstly, thank you, and thanks for all the people who have joined in. I just want to say this has been a big lesson of how do you learn on the fly. Really, we had no playbook for this kind of an event, and this was not the BCP we were looking at. Let me be very clear. It was not in our risk matrix. The first sign of it, what we got was there was an auto show in Delhi in February. Our team was supposed to go because we are trying to get into the battery business, electric car, and suddenly we heard there's a huge Chinese delegation coming there, and we had seen this China shutdown. And my first instinct was to tell my team, you're not traveling to Delhi. I don't want any one of you going there inadvertently getting infected. So my team actually thought I was a bit crazy and a bit paranoid. But I think the government moved much faster than us. They actually stopped the Chinese from coming, and they said they'll be put in quarantine if they came to India. And that was the start of the stop of flights to India. So broadly, I think it started in Feb. We never anticipated it will evolve into the kind of situation we are in, 45 days of lockdown or more than that. And a lot of people talk about U, W, V, L and all that shape. And I clearly can see within my business, because we serve multiple industries and chemical companies generally serve multiple industries, there are sectors which are like V, the sectors which are like U, the sectors which are like W, and sectors which are like a cliff. They're not going to come back. So I always tell them this analyst way of looking at is the economy. I think that it'd be very, very sectoral, very, very granular. I think that is one learning we have already. So we never really stopped, as I said. The products we were supplying to pharmaceutical and food industry have been running. In fact, the sales to food sector have actually shot up 20% more. So we've been struggling to keep the plant, satisfy the customer needs. And from day one, we were putting this entire exercise on about 4 pillars. And let me just say what the 4 pillars were. The first one, as Vibha also mentioned, was completely employee and community well-being. Our first concern was how do we keep our employees and communities safe? Whatever we do, we can't bring them in the harm's way. The second, obviously, was liquidity. For us, liquidity was very important. We are a zero-debt company in India. We are sitting on cash, but even then, we drew down whatever credit lines we had internationally. And it was very critical because we had no idea how long this is going to last. Some people said 6, some people 12, but then the management and the board took a call that this will go only when the vaccine is found, and that's 18 to 24 months. We actually played out the extreme scenario. The third element is very, very important because that's the one which told us the resilience in the organization, the pivot to digital. I never really thought that digital would become the centerpiece of what we work. In fact, the latest plant restart we've had in Kadalur in South, we had to do that without the plant manager being able to travel there because he was in containment zone. We couldn't have the shift engineers go because they had to come across the districts. But yet they restarted the plant with instructions going telephonically over a video on a Skype. So these are new things we are, tele instructions for the shift in charge. We never thought of that before, but I think that's something which we are. So the pivot to digital, I would say, is the third pillar. And lastly, I think we are not really forgetting that there is an outcome which is beyond 24 months. So we are actually recrafting our entire strategy and saying this has taught us a lesson in terms of which segments are more resilient, which segments we need to grow, and which segments we need to give up. So. So I think, broadly speaking, if I were to come from employee well-being, I think from the day one, I think even before our plant never really stopped, as I said, we started looking at what are the various practices we need to put in place. We have a series of standard operating practices now well established, and this has been a thing which we have learned. And we have improvised on it. For example, social distancing at the entry point, social distancing throughout the plant. How do you run the plant with just 30% employees coming in, even at full load? These are things we are learning on the fly. How do you also isolate critical skills so that if one electrical shift in charge falls sick, we have 3 other people who can take his position, skill mapping, which we have never done before. These are things which we have done. Also creating facilities in and around our factories for self-quarantine. also facilities for them to look at the hospital. We have a 24/7 doctor on call. These things we did for employee well-being. We also have gone into extensive communication with employees in terms of removing their anxieties, making sure their issues are addressed from time to time. And very clearly, the other element of this whole thing was about how do we ensure, while we have staggered manpower, some of this manpower still feels engaged, because you're now inviting only 30-40% people to come into the factory and work. How do you keep the rest of the 70-50% people engaged when they're not coming in, but they're needed the next cycle around to come into the factory? And all these practices have taken a lot of training, lot of communication, lot of change of mental models which employees have had in the past. One of the things I would certainly say to all the participants who are here is that create documentation, documentation, and documentation, because our fear of this entire operational process has been that if you by chance have one COVID-19 case, what stance will authorities take? Will they shut your factory down? And for that purpose, we've actually created a series of documentation, including employee self-declaration, declaration of temperature checks, declaration of what we've done, and physical proofs, which we now share across the board on a Google Drive. All the employees can access it, and it's available for giving it to the authorities in case they need this documentation going on. The other element of the process has been, over a period of time, we now have created a small group of people called Corona Commandos. These are people who go around the plant, go around our operations, check whether people are actually following the norms which we have set for ourselves. Again, a very, very important step, because we realize that in some places, some of the people think this is, their immunity is so good that they don't follow this process and rules. So this has been, again, a process of sort of how do you to deliver on the commitment they make to all employees, even though few of them may not want to follow the rules and regulations. The other element is out of the Vishaka factories have been run 24/7 time, even the lockdown happened. Some of the factories were asked to shut down, like the Kadalur one, which we actually were shut down. And when the shutdown orders came, they came very, very dramatically. During the evening, suddenly it was announced that the national day, they would sort of extend the lockdown into a one full 3-week period. And suddenly we had to seek approvals for our couple of engineers to go back to ensure the shutdown was safely carried out. And we ensured that the safe shutdown procedures were actually then reviewed by another set of team before signing off the plant had been shut down. And we also have now, we had at that point of time itself put in place a series of checklists which we needed to do for safe restart, including wherever were hazardous chemicals, what are we doing with them. I think this whole case of Visakhapatnam incident tells you that both shutdown and it's very detailed plan, and all along one designated person to do this. Now we know that if that designated person is in a containment zone, we need 3 designated people now, because I them with different, he or she can still go and check the whole element. One element of this changing demand pattern has been that now we've had to innovate on the fly to make the plant capacities and optimize the plant capacities. So as I was saying, our plant in Akola, which was supposed to make pesticides, was converted to hand sanitizers overnight. The speed with which the government actually gave us approvals has been fantastic. We got approval from Maharashtra government in 3 days to convert that to a hand sanitizer factory. Our unit in Metapur was converted to manufacturing disinfectant. In fact, today we are supplying disinfectants to government of Gujarat and government of Maharashtra free of cost. We're also supplying hand sanitizers to whomsoever wants in Maharashtra to the government authorities free of charge out of the facilities we have in Dahej and in Akola. Also, as I said, some of our users, they can demand to sort of re-optimize our plant on the run and re-engineer and shift the utilities to take up that load from the units which were not running at full load. Basically, the sectors they were serving were real estate and automotive sectors. Those sectors were down. So plant capacity optimization on the run is again another issue which we had to learn. There were a lot of external linkages. We realized very early in the game that very small chemical which we use a container load in the entire year was coming from China, from a specific location very close to Wuhan. And that became a huge bottleneck. We needed to sort of work our way around. So it's not just international global supply chain, it is also local supply chains. For example, packaging units were in containment zones. Suddenly we had to ship material to our customers, but we had to get those factories started. So as a large unit, our approach has been to work with our suppliers to get them the approvals to support us so that we can continue to engage and ensure continuous supply to all our customers. We've had initially our experience with logistics and the road movement was really bad in the sense that we hit all sorts of roadblocks. But I want to say that our experience with the Indian Railways has been fantastic. Because of no freight, no passenger traffic these days, what used to take 7-8 days on freight movement today takes only 2 days to reach destinations anywhere in India. So the reliance on railways, so we've in fact increased the rail load factor in the sense that now we are shipping a lot more through Indian Railways rather than by road. And the other learning has been to look at the stocking points very close to customers, because sometimes these logistic failures happen. You still need to service your customers. You need to make sure that you have multiple stocking points close to customers. So these were all the things we've done on the external linkages. In terms of financial issues, I think obviously we reworked our capex. The team has done a terrific job in terms of taking capital out of this out of the current year need. Also, we've had done a terrific job in terms of fixed costs down. A lot of costs we are looking at, fixed costs, we're looking at how do you variabilize them. I think that's another discussion which is on. We've actually looked at our customers and their credit appraisal again. We now know that many of our customers may be under stress. How do we support them during this period? We've identified them in 3-4 buckets, and we're trying to work with some of them and increase our share with some of them. So these are all the stuff which is going on. Also renegotiate with the vendors in case some vendors need higher support from us, then is there a discount which can come along with it by giving an advance because there are cash flow problems a vendor has had. And on the whole, look at operational efficiency as a theme in terms of, in addition to working capital management. Broadly, in terms of last 4 or 5 weeks, what has been our learning? I think the first one is what Vibha already touched upon. We very quickly learned that what does empowerment really mean? I think we used to talk about this word, but really this showed that the front line was on its own. They still delivered without supervision. Many of them actually innovated on the fly. This also meant that we had to trust them more. The level of trust had to be of the highest order. Not that we didn't do before, but I think this opened up a complete new lens to look at the whole thing. The other element we've learned is that every business is unique. We've got businesses which are supplying to farmers. We have business which are supplying to food, which are supplying to auto sector, and every business is different. And there's no one-size-fits-all solution. So each one you need to do small experimentation and quickly scale up. Thing which we've done well is evening calls and afternoon calls. These are very critical for us. This used to be every day. Now it is every alternate day, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And there's a lot of cross-learning which happens on these calls. While people do share what they've done, but I think keeping those communication lines going, enabling people to the element which I already touched upon was digitize on the run. This has been a crash course in digitization. Which are the pieces which need to documents, even annual accounts closing, for example. Now we know which documents are not digital now, which we need to digitize going forward. Cash flow is critical. Cash is emperor now, not even king. And I always say this, while we go through this crisis may last 6 months. In terms of the extreme crisis, it may actually taper down in terms of the extremeness of crisis, but will still be with us as a pain for a year and a half. But this is a time we should start planning for medium term and long term. Never waste a good crisis, because this is the time to jettison bad habits, old habits, bring in new business practices, bring in new business ideas, and also get rid of the ideas which may have run their course. So that's all I would like to say here. So all I can say is that no playbook, learn on the run. I'm looking forward to learning through this panel discussion what else I can do. And there is nobody to tell us what to do here. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Mukundan. Really appreciate your insights, your honesty, and I'm sure everybody from the manufacturing sector, and I'm seeing some of the Q&As pop up, which I'm going to take towards the end. had a fair number of questions on the challenges that the sector was facing. I had this kind of momentary urge to kind of stop you, but the conversation was so interesting.